Boom.
Hello. Hey,
Hey
Nadine.
there.
Hey, everyone. I'm Lisa Graves. Welcome to the 8.5, your midweek break. It's so great to be here with you, Nicole. It was wonderful to have Stephanie as our guest host last week. It's great to have Greg back around here, our producer, helping us get things right. And you all know the routine. It's 5 stories, 8 minutes each, and a chance to refuel. We slow things down to sip, reflect, and remember you are not alone. But it's been lonely. I can't believe it's February. January was the longest January ever. It wasn't dry for me. I know people dry January. It wasn't wet particularly, but it was just like
Wow.
Twice the month.
I had an accidental dry January. I didn't plan it that way, but it turns out, yeah.
Good for
dry
you.
January. Yeah.
Good for you. Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
have to
So
catch
it
up.
has been a thing. It feels like, when that movie came out a couple years ago, Everything Everywhere All at Once, which seemed, both a stupendous feat, but also unrealistic. It feels like we are actually in Everything Everywhere All at Once. It is just a nonstop chaos machine with the chaos machine at the White House. So yeah, it is
Yeah.
really.
And the sausage fingers from everywhere all at once. That was a deeply fascinating movie.
Yes.
But it's good to see you. It's good to have an appointment to talk about the madness in the world.
Yes. Yeah. It has been.
I think we should I'll tell you, I just want to give everybody a sneak preview. Later in this segment, later in the show, I'm going to reveal something absolutely shocking about my connection to all of this, the Epstein.
Wow. Okay. Well, that is quite a coin burning a hole in my pocket over here. I did not expect that. I, like you all, am unaware of what this secret surprising connection is. All right. Well, should we jump in? I will post the banner. And
yes, let's jump in.
So I just thought I would start with, there have been a number of columns that I think repeat the notion that most of us have, which is everything Trump touches turns just to not gold. I mean, things do turn to gold, like just half-assed gold painting, like fake
only
gold,
if it's
gaudy, whatever. But I mean, I really would like to figure out who has standing to file a suit this month to block him from tearing down a single pillar of the Kennedy Center. Now, I lived in DC for a number of years. The Kennedy Center is beautiful, amazing, sort of 1960s, early 70s architecture. Just, it is not filled with gold garbage or fake gold garbage or things from Home Depot spray painted gold garbage. It is an amazing theater. It is not in need of any Trump renovation of any kind. The seating is fabulous. The stages are gorgeous. The sound, the acoustics in the rooms for the symphony, for the arts, it's a really beautiful theater. It needs not a speck changed by this madman. And I am seriously worried that this horrible, destructive dude is actually going to unleash, a set of construction vehicles onto the building because the Kennedy Center has the people who are the longtime artists and repeat visitors and new guest artists have basically rejected this completely boneheaded, ridiculous, outrageous takeover of the Kennedy Center that needed no such takeover, that was operating just fine, with Trump injecting himself into the operation of the Kennedy Center. And then, as we all know, pasting his name, which will someday be a blasphemy, that is spoken as, or rarely spoken as, a blasphemy, pasted his name on it, and now the dude is saying it's got to be closed for 2 years so he can renovate it. And I want a court order like nobody's business. I want to, like in no time, like ironclad saying, hell no, not today, Satan. Yeah.
Well, okay, here's what I want to say. A man who would accept a Nobel Peace Prize from someone that he is functionally blackmailing has absolutely no bottom to how low he will go. And so destroying the Kennedy Center is his retaliation for not being embraced, not being loved. It's like stolen valor. I'll steal your Nobel Prize, I'll slap my name on the Kennedy Center. And when you don't show me the love that I'm craving, because he's willing to burn the world to cinders because daddy never hugged him. But this is all part of the same the same response. It's love me or I'll destroy you. And means yes to him. So what we're also seeing is a replay of his strategy around the White House where he said, oh, we're just going to do a little spit and polish, just trim the hedges, maybe expand it just a little bit. And then here came the wrecking balls. So I don't know the court order. As I said last week, we are discovering more and more how little there are safeguards in our so-called democracy when what we thought were ironclad guardrails have revealed themselves to be flimsy gentlemen's agreements and adherence to certain norms that this criminal enterprise masquerading as a government has no concern with abiding by. So I think the only way through this is if artists who will not, who refuse to play, actually encircle it. Remember was it the Yippies who encircled the, was it the Pentagon?
I think it was the Pentagon.
Yeah. I mean, I think we got to have that kind of action that, stops the bulldozers and stops the activity and has, people-sponsored, people-led performances of all the performers who wouldn't play inside, play outside. We turn it into a 3-day festival. Minnesota has shown the way.
Yeah.
Lisa, I can't believe you're not taking notes. I'm like, this is the game plan. Just,
I appreciate the multi-pronged legal and surreal and spiritual encirclement, protection of the Kennedy Center. It's a national treasure. It's just absurd. And, there was when I was living in DC, there was this jerk who owned the football team formerly known as the Redskins, now the Commanders. And that dude, again, what is with these guys? But, he was ordered basically to not destroy these trees on this property that he owned because of their role in that neighborhood and, other assorted rules for not destroying trees. So, of course, he did it in the dark of night, Dan Snyder. Like they, this notion that they can just do whatever they want. But, when you were describing Trump as like, love me or I'll destroy you, to me, that epitomizes the mindset of a rapist. It's the mindset of a sexual predator. It's the mindset of a predator, of a sexual abuser, a man who has been adjudicated by the courts in this country to have engaged in sexual abuse against E. Jean Carroll and has been accused, though he's denied numerous other such allegations. But that's right. That is the mindset of a deeply disturbed person who has no business being in charge of anything, quite frankly. Yeah.
Well, and you're using Dan Snyder, but I will say this. I bet every single person listening right now knows a rich person who thumbed their nose at zoning laws, at the Historical Society, cut down the trees, destroyed the historic building. And what did they get? Maybe a fine, maybe. For all of the squawking about the destruction of the White House, what has come of it?
Yeah.
So, he will continue to push and do as he pleases until one of the co-equal branches of government stops him. But yes, so the Kennedy Center, the Grammys, the Super Bowl, all of these are places where the culture has rejected Trump. And these are the places that he lashes out. And this is where he puts his energy and his emphasis. Because he doesn't really have a job besides facilitating the both hands cash grab and plunder of our government.
Yep.
And the shakedown of foreign governments. So yeah, it's like, call me when you need me to, bust something up so we can rob them. Otherwise,
it is. He's got tons of time on his hands because he's not actually doing the jobs that ordinary presidents do, like read things, read reports from agencies, or meet with actual scientists versus, hacks, that have quacking ducks, if that's not a tell of a phone ring for the quack over there at HHS. I don't know what is, but I do think the insults to the Grammys. Trevor Noah is a fantastic comedian. He's brilliant. He's amazing. And the idea that you could sue him for anything, the sitting president could sue the MC of a award show for a joke, is a joke. Our laws need to be enforced to protect against that sort of malicious, ridiculous, baseless, frivolous harassment. And yet Trump has also just sued the IRS for $10 billion for a leak that was already resolved. And the IRS's operating budget is like $12 billion of our money that is not, that is supposed to be being spent protecting, to ensure that our tax laws are, being followed by billionaires, although sometimes it's deployed against other people. But like $10 billion in damages, like the guy is off his rocker. Like his lawyer should be sanctioned. He should be sanctioned. He should actually, like, I think that, like, if there were any justice, he would be barred from any more defamation suits of any kind or any such frivolous litigation. It is disgusting. Similarly, his attacks on Harvard and the shakedown, it is just one ridiculous, frivolous, outrageous lawsuit after another to pad his pockets and squeeze people.
Well, and listen, it's paid dividends for him. He has, he sued CBS, right, over 60 Minutes. And who runs CBS now? And, and even when he doesn't win in court, he creates such fear and paranoia that they capitulate in advance. This is a strategy. This is his art of the deal. And the only way back from it is to punch back, no matter the odds. And unfortunately, what we've discovered is the spinelessness of the folks who might have stood up. But I also think, and this will be a nice segue to our next section, which is about the Washington Post, the gutting of the Washington Post. But when you look at Project 2025, for example, what you see is the reverse engineering of all of the safeguards, all of the impediments to corruption, everything from gutting the watchdog organizations within the government by formulating DOGE, the complete purchase of Congress, the complete capture of the Supreme Court, and now the Washington Post, the very newspaper that is synonymous with exposing all the president's men and the level of corruption that we see coming out of, there's so many scandals that, like, I think it'll take cannibalism to actually be the next scandal that can grip people's attention long enough to not be, not have the spectacle of it all, to sort of distract. But yes, of course you'd go after the Washington Post. Of course you would capture all of the places that have any kind of reputation for holding you accountable. So, massive layoffs. They cut a third of the newsroom, disbanded all of the major desks, and it is a shell. And Bezos made it clear early on that this was no longer a newspaper; it was a mouthpiece for, capitalistic end stage capitalism excess, and anything, what Peter Thiel describes as the monopolistic capitalism, the only capitalism they're interested in, not the competition between, better mousetraps, but the ability to completely own, without regulation, without impediment, without accountability, their lane. So, Yeah.
It is shocking, although not shocking, right? It's shocking. I was going to say, and I think I might be revealing my age. I'm going to go back to our previous topic for a second, because I do watch the Grammys because I feel like I love music, but I am not as hip as I look. Not so hip. But I have to say, I think that I'm going to reveal my age by saying, like, there's just so many celebrities now who just go by one name, including Lisa as a name of a particular character, that I am disoriented by the one nameism phenomenon going on at the Grammys. But it's the least of it. There's just so many talented artists, and I wanted to say I really appreciated hearing Bad Bunny talk about, we're not animals, we're human beings, and I know that people like Bill Maher, have complained about supposedly celebrities taking political positions. Are you kidding me? The guy who's like, that's his entire shtick, is his political position. But how dare any other artist?
Yeah, didn't that guy used to have a show called Politically Incorrect?
Really?
Oh, that's weird.
That guy. I regret every second I ever laughed at any of his jokes. I mean, I did like New Rules, but he's gone off the rails in the last several years, and he wasn't actually that great before. But this guy, to basically, he reminds me of the super thirsty Megyn Kelly, who just will say anything for publicity, just anything. And that's, I think, who Maher is now. But I appreciate celebrities who take the risk, actually, of speaking up, of, wearing the ice out button, because, they a lot of them, they're not as rich as, we may think they are, because of the clothes that they wear, or the things that they get, the perks of celebrity. A lot of them are working actors, and, maybe made it big once. Maybe they didn't get the dividends like the producers do or the studios do, but, they're famous. And that fame is not forever for most of them. And so it is a risk for some of them with their audience to speak up. And I appreciate when they do.
Yeah. In fact, right now, if you're on, perpetually on social media, like some of us, what you see is more and more influencers who aren't necessarily political. Some of them are cook, they do recipes, or they do hikes, or they, they are speaking up. They are saying, I can't be on this platform and be silent when all of this is happening. And so, if I lose people, that's fine. But I've been silent too long. And so, yeah, you're going to come here and you're going to hear me denouncing ICE and denouncing this administration. And if you have a problem, the unsubscribe button's right there. And I think that's, celebrities and influencers and anybody who has a platform of any sort, being silent is not an option right now. Silence is and has always been complicity. And shout out to the Korean vegan. I just want to say I was a subscriber before she came out with her political analysis, which is even spicier than her food. So
well, I was gonna, but that does, that the contrast really between some of those stars, some of those actors who do have things to lose, who are taking risks by standing up and speaking out, including Rob Reiner, who, I still really mourn his passing. He was such a clear and strong voice, and he was a strong voice, strident voice against Trump. And then you have Bezos, who basically has all the money in the world and can't get enough money, more money, right? He just has to sell out. He has to destroy the institution of the Washington Post. He has to give it over to the right-wing dude who's managing it, who blocked the Post from daring to endorse Kamala Harris, and instead, in order to kiss Trump's ring, or whatever. And you just like it. To me, it is just completely mind-boggling. Bezos could afford to stand up to Trump if he had any guts. He let that happen during the first term, and then he basically said, whoa, yeah, I'm going to just help this fascist. I'm going to help this authoritarian regime. I'm going to destroy this institution. I mean, and this is a guy, these layoffs, 1/3 of the newsroom, this attack on the Post reputation, the attack on bureaus, and both work in society, the role that the Post plays as the paper of record in DC, the cultural components, the sports components, everything. And this is a dude who didn't even blink an eye about greenlighting a ridiculous, outlandish expenditure of tens of $millions for a vanity pick for Melania. And it's not even like a vanity biopic, because it's like 20 days. And apparently, according to the reviews, like 20 pairs of shoes. You know, and then like 40 million in like advertising to try to get people to see the just squandered money. He could have just stood there and like lit it on fire in front of a theater, and we would have had more satisfaction than throwing them. But so on the one hand, tens of millions of dollars are nothing to waste kissing Trump's ring in order to put forward this. I'm not even going to call it a documentary. It's like an advertisement of 20 days before the inauguration of the most vapid person to ever be the first lady of the United States. And of course, on brand, the dude they choose is a guy who has been repeatedly accused of sexual misconduct, of sexual aggression toward women and harassment. And of course, he's denied it. But the fact is that, like, could you have like a more ideally suited dude to direct this ridiculous advertising like gift to Trump than Ratner? And could you have just a more and for it to come from a guy who claims he has to cut costs at the Post? I mean, it is just repulsive.
Right. Well, this is the thing that I want to underscore. Jeff Bezos has always been aligned with his financial agenda. And at the moment, and this is true of so many of them, J.D. Vance called Trump Hitler. J.D. Vance said he was the worst thing. Marco Rubio, you can line them all up until their financial futures aligned with him. And then suddenly he's amazing. Most important, best thing ever happened to America. Bezos is no different. But the thing that everybody has to understand, whether it's you got an invitation to the pre-inaugural party where the Trump coin dropped, and then you got the heads up that the Melania coin was dropping so you could get in early and then pull the rug out from all the other suckers. This is more of the same. This is how money changes hands. It's being laundered right in front of us. Nobody was calling out for that movie, but they get the money up front for the movie, and then they get the money from all of the people whose arms were twisted to sell out theaters so they can use that talking point. Meanwhile, you have a previous Netflix special on Michelle Obama suddenly rocketing back up to in the top 10 on Netflix off of actual users watching it as a way of protesting not only the vapidity of this Melania film, but the wanting to strike this contrast. But I think we always have to say, follow the money. And this is about laundering money right in front of our eyes. This is about, shakedowns and sweetheart deals. Marjorie Taylor Greene, of all people, was on social media today saying that everything Trump does is about paying off his oligarch buddies. And she said, if you want to know who they are, look who's paying for the ballroom. Look who's financing everything he does. And this is that essentially criminal enterprise. And so, the quality of the film is irrelevant to them because all of the deal has been cut. The bribe has been sent and received. So it's kind of some of the best headlines have emerged from reviewers, really getting to exercise their thesaurus and trying to describe the absolute empty vessel that this thing is. But it's also sort of like trying to review a mob hit. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I guess you can do that if you want, but don't mistake it for art.
Yeah. It is, but I do think, like, just the contrast to see the destruction, the vandalism of the Washington Post as an institution, and then this by this billionaire dude. And I also think, like, clearly we need we need a lot of new laws to deal with what's gone down and what's been allowed to go down. We're going to have, if we are able to get power back again in the House and the Senate and the presidency. I mean, we should never be in a situation where billionaires get a finance, like they're just donating to a ballroom, and so I don't have to raise money from the taxpayers to do it. And aren't I great? But it's the shakedown machine in real time, and that's somehow okay. Like when I was at the Justice Department, I worked on a public-private partnership that was with AT&T and Court TV, and it was about teaching tolerance to middle school students. It was an effort to try to have some programming in the middle schools to try to prevent kids entering into hate crimes, like kind of have early intervention. And it was a great project. It was perfectly, fine and normal. But when I left that project and I ended up working at the Center for Media Democracy, we started looking into public-private partnerships, which is not what the ballroom is. It's just a shakedown meeting. But like this idea of when the government partners with the private sector and public sector to do something, like it's always sold as this is saving you money. But what it's also doing is it's sort of reputation laundering by the corporation or the funder. They're getting something out of it. Maybe there's an altruistic component to it, but it's also like a way to burnish their commercial, activities. Yeah. Or in the case of the ballroom, to continue to get access for whatever sweet deal or non-enforcement or whatever they want.
Well, and listen, the situation before Trump wasn't that great, where you had corporations paying for the inauguration and buying access in those ways. And on the other side of this, we got to get rid of every pathway that calls corporations individuals and lets them, fund campaigns in the way they are. We got to get the money out of politics, and we have to get the plunder out of politics and the corruption out of politics. And he has exposed every fault line that a basic level of decency kept from being visited upon many Americans, but not all. What we are seeing now, what is allowed to happen to the least of us, will eventually make its way to all of us. Because they're learning the boundaries of what you can do and get away with.
Yeah, that's why my favorite quote of all time from my hero, Frederick Douglass. I named my day job True North Research, True North, in homage to Frederick Douglass's North Star, the famous, really important abolitionist paper. Of course, I didn't want to take that name. I just wanted to, call to it. But Frederick Douglass wrote a letter in 1857, and he said, "Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will." And then I'll paraphrase because I don't have it right here in front of me. But he says, find out what in humanity people will accept, and that is the extent to which authoritarians or oppressors will push until it is stopped, until we stop it through action, through words. And I think that's exactly right. We're seeing how far an oppressor will go until we stop them, until we vote them out, until we rebuke them, until we get the levers of power back and can actually repair the damage and really expand our freedoms. And so we can thrive and not go back in time to some previous non-ideal era, but to really deal with the fault lines that he has absolutely stomped on, and with complicity from the courts, which is our next topic 3.
Nicely done. Nicely done, Lisa. Go ahead,
Yes.
Segue Queen. Take us there.
Okay. All right. Well, so everyone saw the reporting about the raid on Fulton County, the removal of hundreds of pallets of ballots of the people of Fulton County, and that this was done by the FBI after the head of the FBI in Georgia refused and resigned. This was done not with the leadership of the U.S. attorney in Georgia, in that district in Georgia, but instead with the help of an AUSA, a prosecutor from Missouri, who just recently happened to rule in favor of Pam Bondi's brother's interests in a case. So sort of perhaps auditioning for the job, in my personal opinion. So they bring in a Missouri dude to help oversee the search warrant request. And then you have the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, who is someone who I think never should have been confirmed to that role. That role is the role of overseeing all the foreign intelligence gathering spy agencies in the country. We shouldn't have the foreign intelligence spy director basically managing or overseeing or in any way involved, even by a pinky, involved in federal law enforcement, domestic law enforcement. But there she is, supposedly at Trump's demand. Apparently doesn't know what her actual job is, because her actual job doesn't involve this at all. It doesn't really care what her actual job is. Her job is overseeing the intelligence agencies, which, by the way, unanimously it investigated and found that the 2016 election was targeted by Russia, by Putin, for interference, which Trump has denied over and over and over again with his lie about the so-called Russia hoax. And she has been there at the DNI's office purportedly to help try to advance his narrative on that issue, on not Russian interference and whatever else they are going to try to pull on us in 2026 and 2028. But she's there. She calls Trump on her phone. He calls her back, and then he cheerleads apparently to the agents in the room about how they did a great job in seizing these ballots that were already counted and then counted again and then counted again. They've been audited. Yeah, they've been audited. Every single legitimate entity, not Tulsi Gabbard, but every single legitimate entity that has looked into this has found there to be no evidence of fraud in Fulton County. Trump lost. He's a big loser, and he can't accept it. And he wants those ballots to try to prove that supposedly the election was stolen and he should have been president in 2021. And so he was justified in attacking our Capitol in the war that he continues to perpetuate against our democracy from the inside, the call coming from inside the House. And this Fulton County raid is another one of these attempts to see how far they can go. What can they do in 2026? When could they take ballots? When could they, try to pretend like they've got a lawful search warrant to do so? This search warrant, in my view, never should have been approved. We don't know what kind of supposed evidence was presented to the magistrate judge, just like with the attacks on James Comey and Letitia James. Who knows what kind of crap they might have put into some sort of search warrant. I looked at the statutes that were invoked. One of the statutes is one that prevents the interference in the election, which is precisely what Trump was trying to do with his call to Brad Raffensperger. If anyone should have been searched based on that federal statute involving the Fulton County ballots, it should have been Trump, who should have been, searched and charged and convicted for his role in trying to disrupt the election, trying to tell Brad Raffensperger to find, 10,000 plus votes, the exact number he supposedly needed to win. That's one of the statutes they invoke. The other statute they invoke is one that provides that officials have to retain ballots for 22 months. Well, I've got news for you, not you, but the world. Like, it's been 5 friggin' years. Like, those ballots were retained. There's no actual evidence of any crime related to them retaining the ballots for longer than they had to retain them. So, we'll see what happens next, but this is a disaster. And this disaster, again, goes back to John G. Roberts, who wrote that despicable, counter-constitutional, anti-constitutional invention of immunity from criminal prosecution for Donald Trump for his official acts. And in Roberts's opinion, he carves out, when Jack Smith is pursuing Donald Trump for his efforts to subvert that election and direct the Department of Justice to engage in activity that it had no business engaging in, and it did not, to seize ballots or pressure these states. It's John Roberts, in that despicable opinion, who says, of course, the president can direct the FBI and DOJ. He's the executive. These are official acts. So John Roberts helped author the disaster unfolding in Fulton County because he has put his thumb on the scale of justice, his fist on the scale of justice, to aid Trump. And this raid is the result of that illegitimate ruling by John Roberts and the other Republican appointees to the court, which include 3 people Trump put on the court who probably should actually not have even sat on that case. Along with Thomas, who never should have sat on this case because his wife was trying to get the fake electors organized in Wisconsin and Arizona, and Sam Alito, who never should have sat on the case because he was flying January 6th related flags over his home that supposedly his wife put up, but he didn't have the arm strength to take down. So none of them should have sat on that case besides John Roberts and the Democratic appointees. And quite frankly, John Roberts would have been outvoted on his ridiculous, outrageous, insane, super destructive ruling that swept Donald Trump back into power and has emboldened him to engage in things like what just happened in Fulton County. Okay, now I'm going to stop. Throw it back to you.
Oh, hey, listen, everyone's like, uh-oh, Lisa's going in on Roberts. Listen, I think that the thing that everybody should understand, just like I said about Project 2025, this isn't really fundamentally about the past. It's about seizing the infrastructure for the future. It's about seizing the infrastructure for the election that's coming. They know they're hemorrhaging. They know they're underwater. They know that Trump's taking a nosedive. You know, anyone who watched him talk to the reporter from CNN, this woman, I can't think of her name right now, somebody in the chat, who said, was basically saying, asking him about Ludnick and others in his administration being all up and through the Epstein files. And after trying to dodge it, he's basically, they'll be fine. They'll be fine. I don't think they did anything wrong. Otherwise, it would be big news. And then he segues to say to her, you're a terrible reporter. I've known you for a long time and I've never seen you smile. Why don't you smile? I mean, like every woman who's had that boss knows that moment. And it was just appalling. He said, I think people are ready to move on from the Epstein files. There are more important things to do, like destroy the Kennedy Center, tweet about Bad Bunny, and the Super Bowl, and bemoan the fact that so many artists with one name called you out. But the reason they're doing this is not about the past. It's about the future. It's the same reason they told Tim Walz in Minnesota, hey, we can stop shooting your people in the street as soon as you, fork over your rolls.
Yep.
They want control of that infrastructure, and they want it completely. And so they will do, these kind of raids. They will, any place they think they can't do a raid, they will find a way to use ICE as the goon squad that they use to leverage and get these things. In Florida, you have DeSantis withholding emergency hurricane, preparedness and response money unless cities get rid of, rainbow crosswalks or Black Lives Matter murals or anything that he politically doesn't want. He's perfectly happy threatening to remove people from office, and has removed duly elected Democrats from office because they would not acquiesce. And so, the gloves are completely off. There is no limit to their power because the things that would limit their power have been captured, except for one, and that's the people. And that's why what we see happening across the country is so inspiring. And I want to say to people, yes, you've got to vote, right? You've got to vote. You've got to raise your voice. We have to go to court. We have to sue these people. But each of these things by themselves is insufficient if people do not take to the streets, raise their voices, and put their bodies in the way of this machinery, this odious machinery. We have to stop the gears of it with our bodies, with our voices, with every tool available to us, because it will not simply be the midterms that save us, because the midterms, what happens if They do what they did to the Arizona, lawmaker, refuse to cede them, right? And use disinformation and deepfake AI. We just have to be aware that it will not, the only thing that's going to save us is us, and the institutions will not, have already shown that they have either capitulated out of fear or aligned themselves financially with this, criminal enterprise masquerading as a government.
Yeah. Yeah, I was at a meeting in DC a couple months ago, and one of my friends and I were lamenting, kind of where we are, like what's happening in our world. And then we sort of came to the conclusion, you know what? The lamenting isn't going to change a thing. This is where we are, and we have got to do everything we can to restore the power of the people, to restore our rights. And in fact, as hard as it feels on some days to see what's unfolding, like honestly, I feel great honor to be part of this fight with you all in defense of human rights. And if I'm gonna go down swinging, I'm gonna go down swinging on this. And so we have each other, and we are a growing force. There are more and more people who are working together in nonviolent protest and in dissent. More and more people are waking up. I mean, Trump just got his clock rung in Texas in that race for the Texas State House, where he won that district by like double digits, and the Democrat won, even though that district, that legislative district, is still like 50% Republican registered voters. And Trump went all in trying to get his person to keep that seat, pushing out his message for them, and his clock got rung. The people in Texas, which included certainly some number of Republican and independent votes with Democratic voters, said, hell no, not today, Satan. Yeah.
Right.
It was amazing. Yeah. Back to that phrase. I am going to just love that phrase for the rest of the night.
Well, two things I'll just point out. You may recall that Tulsi Gabbard, back in May, there was a really incendiary whistleblower complaint that was leveled. And they said it was so incendiary that despite it being protocol, they did not alert Congress in the way that they were supposed to, right? And it alleged that Gabbard had improperly withheld classified information and et cetera. They've only just released, I think today, a heavily redacted version of that complaint, right? And so the level of desperation that is evidenced by Gabbard being present in Fulton County, we've mentioned before Steve Bannon telling a gathering of influential MAGA billionaires, if the midterms don't go our way, people in this room are going to prison, starting with me. So they are in an absolute existential panic. It is what makes them so dangerous, even as the tide rises against them. A bunch of those brosphere podcasters who lifted up Trump are now, somebody help me remember I think his name is Andrew. He's a comedian, but it's like four of them. And, and they were treating it like, he's he's a troll. He's our troll. He's a funny guy. Democrats are so hysterical. Right. And now if you listen to their podcast, they're like, we were wrong. We thought democracy would hold. We never imagined what is happening right now would be possible in America. And everything I called Democrat hysteria has been proven to be an accurate prediction of what this administration will do. So, but even as the tide changes, the I don't know, Gordian knot that we're in is the level of desperation and cruelty. Bannon is basically saying, kill more of them, basically kill more of them in the street. Don't back down. Don't bend the knee now. That's just weakness. We have to break their resolve. Those aren't his exact words, but that's the gist of what he and a lot in the right wing, podcast world, the right wing media. So anytime there's, removing Greg Bovino is the last thing you should do. We need more of him, and we need greater terror, greater intimidation. And so, yeah, things are going to be really, really rough. And the way through is not to believe that, that the Democratic political party is going to save the day by coming through these midterms. That's part of the equation. They wouldn't be doing all of these things to jam up the elections if the elections didn't matter. And we know that there are times when we end up in court, even in this court, even with this Supreme Court, where even they cannot rig every single thing, because they do need to hold on to some shred, some possibility that people will consider them legitimate. So here we are.
Yeah. I so appreciate that, Nadine. It's just, it is, there's a lot of hope in terms of the lower court judges. They have been standing up. State court judges, it is a problem with the U.S. Supreme Court, with the Roberts Court, but those lower court judges are doing an important job, saying no, saying you can't do this. And so I do appreciate Democracy Forward is doing so much litigation along with ACLU and other groups that are at the forefront of these efforts to try to hold the line, to try to get us to a different space. And so that's not, I don't have a great segue to the next one, except that Epstein.
Well, we did talk about Tulsi Gabbard. That's kind of a segue to the
we did.
continuing.
I have a meme on my desk that says, "For the Epsteinth time, release the files." And I just had to say it out loud because I just thought it was good. And I mean Todd Blanche, the Trump criminal defense attorney who now is being paid by us, apparently to defend Trump, but act as deputy attorney general, was like, nope, this is it. All done. We're not going to give you any more. And then what was released included information, personal identifiable information on survivors of the Epstein scheme, while they were, certainly focused on trying to redact Trump's face from a photo in a newspaper, a clip that was included in an email. They were all over making sure that they could try to minimize Trump, although they still, there were still more than 5,000 references to Trump in the files, who, of course, because of his penchant for lying, was like, I think these files clear me. I'm just gonna assert it, and like you said, attack Caitlin Collins for daring to ask about it.
Collins, just thank you. Yeah.
In the gross ways that he piggy himself does. But the Epstein files it's not over. I look forward to further congressional investigations. I'd like to see criminal prosecutions of the men who were also involved in any criminal activity, any predatory activity, any abuse of kids. And one of the things Todd Blanche said at that press conference was that they've redacted any images showing sexual assault, torture, or death. Hello. If there are images showing death, torture, or where are the prosecutions of those individuals? And if we can't prosecute them under statute of limitations rules, then let's change the rules, like we've had to do in other sexual assault cases, to deal with the victims from a previous period who should have their day in court. Yeah. And if not that, then let's figure out ways for them to make sure that they can sue their abusers, the people who abuse them, or have a class action somehow that tries to get some financial justice for these survivors who, it is astonishing that the only people prosecuted were Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, and that all these other people got away with it. And, I mean, and some of it is just so gross. Like it's not just former Prince Andrew, it's also his wife. My God, just the lack of morality, and it's throughout. Like there are things in there. You have Bannon working basically with Epstein in 2016 to help do damage control around the tape where, Trump infamously said he moved on a married woman like a bitch, and that he can grab women by the pussy. I mean, just disgusting. But supposedly Epstein was, vanquished back in 2007 when he pleaded guilty under the state charges to the solicitation charge. Meanwhile, the federal government had access to the full set of materials from the early 2000s showing multiple children, young girls, minors who were victimized by Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, who wasn't just procuring them, but was also involved herself. Just revolting awfulness. And yet she's still sitting at the country club prison, the country club camp, and not back in the prison that she should be sitting in right now. And so, yeah, I want hearings. I want further investigation. I want prosecutions. I want civil charges, just like with the Catholic Church and the predators that they allowed to hurt children, to destroy their lives with impunity. I want them all, every single one of them, held accountable, including Donald Trump, who Todd Blanche absurdly said on the weekend shows, it's not a crime to party with Epstein. Yeah.
Yeah. When that's your last bastion, you're holding on by a very oily thread at that point. And here's the thing that I think is finally sort of breaking through. People are reading these notes. Like everything that was appealing about QAnon, this is actually the conspiracy where a lot of creators across the political spectrum are climbing, they're just crawling through. This is a show where I'm quoting Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massey at this point. You know what I mean? It's like there is a moment. Who's the guy in prison right now, or he's standing trial for killing the United Healthcare CEO.
Oh, yeah.
Luigi.
Yeah, Luigi. Yep.
There came a moment in that where people were reacting, and the right, folks like Ben Shapiro were expressing absolute outrage that this had happened, and other people were going, we're not, his own base was going, we're not with you. Like, no, it's terrible. And a killer killed a killer. Like, someone used a gun to kill someone who used a pen to kill people. And there's this place where those perspectives begin to merge. And what you are beginning to see around the Epstein files is a place where Marjorie Taylor Greene, this does not rehabilitate the fundamental racism and bigotry of these folks, but there is a bridge that people aren't willing to cross. It is a brighter line. You are seeing more and more people who are saying publicly, I was wrong. I was wrong. And at minimum, this is somebody who either hurt children or is pals with people who did, and he's protecting them. And neither of those are okay with me. But the thing, as I read all of these different analyses, and, we see Deepak Chopra and Woody Allen and, along with Ludnick and, Larry Summers, all of these people that show up in these exchanges. We were talking earlier, Deepak Chopra saying God is a construct, but cute girls are real. I mean, all of these grotesque exchanges that just make your blood curl. I just think to myself, how did we end up with this interlocking cabal, this interlocking, gathering of these people. And I just think, what must it be like to live in a world where you have more wealth than you could ever spend, where nobody challenges you, where nobody checks you? And I think of the process of corrupting a cop. Say you're a fresh recruit with a, your eyes are, you're still innocent and you think you're there to protect people. And then you join a squad where it's like, hey, listen, we don't trust you unless you're a little dirty, right?
Yeah.
And maybe it starts off slow with a, I don't know what Marco Rubio was putting in his mouth and chasing with water, but maybe it starts off just a little dirty, just to get along, and the next thing you know, you're holding the camera. The next thing you know what I mean? You are implicated.
You're in it.
Yeah, you're in it, and it feels as though Jeffrey Epstein, whether at the his at the direction of foreign governments, it feels as though there are a lot of people. I can't not look at Marco Rubio and not see a tortured soul who is I was never a fan, but there's just something. Dan Bongino, resigning and trying to get his footing again, but he can't escape on Twitter, in a place where he used to be lionized. His own people are just saying, you have no credibility here. You are in a position to take these this elite ring of traffickers and pedophiles down, and instead you're protecting them. And so there's something there's just this hollowed out vacuous nothingness, this nihilism, this empty sensation seeking insatiability to that universe of people, where everything has to be more and more intensified to the point of, it's Caligula. It's not 1930s, Germany. It's the boy emperor, and every excess that he can imagine is provided to him. It's that mentality that is now a multi-country network of just hedonism.
Yeah. I mean, I just, we have to have moral lines. Like you have to hold murderers accountable. I know that I'm not in favor of the death penalty. I saw the news that they're going to pursue the death penalty for Luigi Mangione for that killing in Manhattan. And that is this government saying that at the time that it is actually continuing to not investigate the killing of Renee Good, that, and other murders that have happened in ICE custody and other injuries in ICE custody. I think that when you look at the Epstein situation, it just becomes so clear, the saying that everyone knows, which is every accusation by these right wingers is basically an admission, because their claims about a child sex ring run by Democrats out of the Comet Pizza, it was just so insane and ridiculous. And yet you have so many people on the inside with Trump who have been palling around, or were palling around with Lutnick. Now, I have no expectations about Woody Allen. I've refused to see a movie since any of his movies since the big set of revelations came out. Lutnick, I have to apologize to you all, because I think there was a session last year where I was like, hey, Lutnick could see that Epstein was a predator, but it turns out that he's a liar too, because there he was hanging out with Epstein, not just the one time pop into his foyer and leave and never one time meeting.
Jon Stewart has a great segment where he shows Lutnick saying, yeah, me and my wife met him, and in the 8 steps it took to walk back to our home, we said to each other, never again. That guy's creepy. He had a massage table. And then, of course, the files reveal that, oh no, he continued to reach out to Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, and I just think, I as you all know, I have not been a fan of Marjorie Taylor Greene for a long time. But when she came out and told the truth of that meeting with Trump, in which he said, I can't do it, it's going to hurt my friends. Can't let the files out, it's going to hurt my friends, after he, gets her in the Situation Room, the national security room, where they're supposed to be able to have, talk about actual matters of war and peace and the defense of the nation. But he uses that space to soil it, to tarnish it with his effort to defend his friends and I'm sure himself. But the rationale that he told her, and I applaud her for rejecting that. And Thomas Massey too. Like there are people who are standing up who we never thought were going to stand up. And then there are people, I am going to segue here. There are people who are performing roles that they maybe never should have been allowed to perform. So you have Greg Bovino leaving Minneapolis after just weeks of destruction, trampling civil liberties, getting people killed, being, having his actions blessed by J.D. Vance as supposedly, perfect immunity, unlimited immunity. And then Vance tried to walk that back. But look, the fact that Homan is there, I mean, honestly, again, this is the guy who was caught on tape in an FBI sting operation, accepting $50,000 cash to steer money to favorable contractors. And Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche basically made that case go away for Trump so that Homan could return to his role. Within our immigration process, the guy who worked with Stephen Miller on the just completely immoral family separation policies that destroyed families and left hundreds of kids for years without their parents, just reckless, destructive policies. And now he's the supposed savior of efforts to try to save the day in Minneapolis, drawing down 700 agents. They shouldn't have 700 agents there in total, let alone leave a couple thousand behind in a city that in Minneapolis that only has like 600 or 700 police officers for all crime, actual crimes, and traffic accidents and the like. But Homan is there because he's like the more sane version in their view compared to the previous guy running the operation with his Nazi cosplay. Is it cosplay or cosplay? I never know. But who wears the coat of the Third Reich, walking down the street? I mean, who knows whether they had quotas in, what the underlying games they were playing with our rights. What we do know, because of material that was leaked by a whistleblower, is that Todd Lyons, the guy at DHS, in May of last year, not this year, in May of last year, issued a memo saying that they don't have to follow the Fourth Amendment, that the ICE or BPS, the Border Patrol or whichever acronym they're using at any given time, don't have to follow the Fourth Amendment. Well, it wasn't his right to say so. Then they hid the memo. Then they decided they would just tell people orally about the rules, which were they don't have to follow the Fourth Amendment. Of course, we saw this in real time when they're going door to door in Minneapolis without probable cause, without any evidence that anyone on any particular block had done anything wrong, let alone a civil offense, not even a criminal offense, because being without documentation is not a crime in the United States. It's not a crime. It's a civil violation of civil immigration law, knocking down people's doors. We saw them breaking people's windows. We, see their little vests with their little glass, puncturing devices to puncture the windows of people, drag them out of their cars. All of this at our expense, at taxpayer expense, without our consent, the siege on Minneapolis. And I have to say, the fact that the guy who took $50K, at least that's the part we know about, and there's no indication of where the money went. Did it ever go back? Did it go back to the government? Did they give it to him? Did he pocket it? Is there more cash that has flown into his pockets? That's the guy who we're supposed to trust to protect us now from the excesses of the previous guy. It is insane and completely unacceptable.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear. Well, we're at the top of the hour, a little past. And, one of the things that we try our best to do, is to end with a little bit of hope, a little bit of a reminder that no matter how tough it gets out there, not only are you not alone, but there are moments of courage, of clarity, and of heroism that doesn't necessarily grab all of the headlines, but it's important that we remember and lift up those stories. The folks who we find ourselves pushing back against, they want us, as always, terrified, alone, dispirited, and feeling as though nothing we can do makes a difference. And last week, we really put the spotlight on the people of Minnesota. We talked about how the incredible courage of the people of Minnesota in organizing in ways that are neighborhood by neighborhood, street by street, neighbor by neighbor, people dashing out into the negative 15 degrees in their bathrobes, with key fobs and whistles to draw attention. And I think it's really important that we also remember not just the crowds of people standing up, but also the individuals. And I'm going to tell you about one individual right now. And at the very end, I promise that I'll reveal my connection to the Epstein world.
That's the overtime session. That's the overtime session.
Yeah, that's the overtime session for people who want to stick around.
Yep.
And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. So, but I was really moved by Miramar Martinez. And for folks who remember that name, she was the person who was shot 5 times by ICE, survived, and has not just fallen into the shadows and away from the fight. She has stepped up and she has testified before Congress. She talked about having a responsibility to speak, and very specifically a responsibility to speak for the people who have been killed by ICE, who no longer have a voice. And it's just sit with that for a moment. You have had 5 bullets put into your body by these masked goons. You've recovered from that. And instead of being silenced and intimidated, you carry with you the commitment to speak in the places where those who did not survive those bullets can't. And so this week, we raise our glasses and remember that no matter how difficult it is, the glass is always half full.
I'm going to jump in on that and add the testimony, if you haven't seen it, is really important. It's important witnessing for us to see it. And you had the Luke Ganger and Brent Ganger, who are the brothers of Renee Good, who testified, and not a single Republican, had the courage or the humanity to come and hear their testimony. You had Antonio Romanucci, who represents Renee Good's family. I hope they sue, $10 billion seems to be the going rate for suits, according to Trump. So let's just go there. Like you said, Miramar Martinez, Aliyah Rahman, who is a Minneapolis person who has been such a community leader and has a disability, and was on her way to a doctor's appointment, and they ripped her out of the car, broke her window, cut the seatbelt, threw her to the ground, injured her so badly that even though apparently the police station that was acting as a holding area for people who were seized by Trump's agents didn't want to get involved and step on their toes, ultimately, after she passed out, they took her to the emergency room where she awoke, and she is still struggling with moving her arms because of how she was manhandled and mistreated by these violent thugs. Martin Daniel Rascon, where a CPB agent fired into his family's vehicle. And these are just the folks who testified. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of more examples of this attack, this siege by Trump's agents, this violence that is being, visited upon immigrants and citizens, children, 5-year-olds, babies being ripped away from their parents. I mean, it is truly outrageous, and it is so important that people have the courage to tell those stories, and that we take the time to watch them and listen to them and share them. So I join you in the glass half full. And now the PS.
P.S. This is the after hours.
The tantalizing but sort of terrifying connection.
I know.
You're eagerly awaiting.
I may regret this immediately, but This is what dry January does to you. So when I was in college, when I was a broke ramen noodles eating college student, I got fired from my job at a deli because the owner was so homophobic that he told me not to serve these doctors because they were gay, and which was a perfect opportunity for me to come out to him. But being a very broke college student, in losing that job, I didn't know how I was going to cover rent, didn't know how I was going to do any of those things. Well, me and my roommate, we hung out at the mall. This was back in the days where hanging out in the mall was just kind of like what you did when you had no money. You'd go down to the food court and eat the free samples. But on this particular day, they had a booth for Vogue magazine. And they waved me over and they said, oh, we'll do a makeover, which I thought was, why not? Well, then I got into Vogue magazine. Like I was one of the models they used in Vogue magazine, which led to them reaching out and inviting me to do modeling. And they connected me with the John Casablanca School of Modeling. Now, if you have been reading the Epstein file, you will find John Casablanca in there, and it is not a good thing. But here was what was fascinating about it to me, and that is that it really gave me an insight into how these girls get trafficked, because you're in hard times. You are financially vulnerable. You are young and away from school, away from home, often for the first time. Now, I remember a photographer took a group of us out to the beach to do a photo shoot, and at the end, and we had all ridden together, and I remember him saying, well, for those who want to really, make some money, you can stick around and we'll do some sunset shots. And it ended up just being me and one other person. And all of this, you're so much more mature than these other girls. You're so much more, a lot of girls are too shy and too silly to do tasteful nudes, whatever. Now, there are no tasteful nudes of me from this photo shoot.
I'm a body positive pro sex feminist, but I was not prepared for the next part of that sentence.
Yes, no. Are there tasteful nudes? Not from this photo shoot. Not from any of the modeling days. But the money was really quite good. But this was the kind of creepiness that you encountered from photographers and people within that business, and you would often find yourself in situations where you're going, I'm showing up at this warehouse for a photo shoot. I hope it's legit, right?
Wow.
And so I feel very fortunate that I was not part of that world in the way that so many young girls were. And it causes me to think back to that time and to wonder what happened to some of the people, some of the young girls who were part of that world, who went on to be models at the elite agency, who were out there. And so every time I run across John Casablanca, and I think about how they had all of these outposts all over the country, and how they were near university campuses, and just how vulnerable, a population of young girls and boys were to this seduction and this financial entanglement. And so I just wanted to reveal, because I never tell people about that. And then one day I was working in a newsroom, and we hired a new secretary, and I came in after being away for a few days, and on the wall were pictures from magazines that looked like me. And I was like, wow, that's really weird. And it turned out that she and I had done a sports catalog photo shoot together. And because when we saw each other, she's like, you look familiar. Yeah, you look kind of familiar. This is like a decade later. And she'd gone home and found the catalog that we had done together, and brought it in. And of course, all all of my reporter friends had to make Xeroxes and put them all wallpaper the newsroom with them. But yes, I can tell funny stories about, being just glancing off of that world. But as I read into the Epstein files, my stomach just lurches at how easily in those circumstances young women can be preyed upon.
Yeah.
There you have it. That's your after hours.
Yes.
That's
Thanks
your
for sharing that, Nadine. I join our audience in the comments saying, thank goodness you were not drawn in, that you were able to just get out of that scenario. And so grateful to be partners with you here on the 5-8.5. Big thanks to Greg Oliar and Stephanie for their support as our executive producers. And we look forward to seeing you again next Wednesday for the 5-8.5. And this Friday, hoping that folks will tune in to see the original 5-8. Thanks, everyone.
Good night.